Do you think helping others helps you? I'm not sure how many of you have heard about Robin Hood Army. And Robin Hood Army is world's biggest food aggregator. And what they do is they collect food and distribute among underprivileged people. It can be juggy clusters, it can be homeless, it can be street kids. They help them out. Because hunger is one of the biggest issues in the world we have. You know what is interesting about our country is, on one side, we have food waste. On the other side, we have hungry people. And Robin Hood Army does wonderful work trying to taking care of this hunger part. It so happened in the month of March, I happened to visit one of those clusters adopted by Robin Hood Army. And I visited them during the food run when they were distributing food in the afternoon. And I met a lot of these volunteers. And all these volunteers were UPSC aspirants. Most of them were UPSC aspirants. Some were professionals. And they all were there during lunchtime serving food. And as they were serving, I got talking to them. I was just talking to them, trying to understand why these people do it. In fact, what was surprising is most of them being UPSC aspirants. You know, UPSC aspirants are always short of time. They're always time pressed. But these kids were there serving. That means they took out time from the regular preparation just to spend time serving people. So I got talking to them and I asked one of these guys, what is your motive? What motivates you? Because you are into a competitive exam which demands a lot of time, but despite that, you are spending time here. What motivates you? Now, I was quite stumped by his answer. He said, sir, when I sit and study, I am doing it for myself. So sometimes I feel, what am I doing for others? And when I come and serve people here, it just takes 1 hour. In that 1 hour, I feel I'm doing something for others. So I really started thinking, like, serving others, does it add meaning to your life? Does it add a new dimension to your life? And that led me to Gandhi's quote. And Mahatma Gandhi very famously said, to find yourself, you have to lose yourself in serving others. The idea of serving others was something which a lot of moral thinkers spoke about it. Even Guru Nanak Dev Ji spoke about it. A lot of them spoke about it. So this idea of serving others, adding to a meaningful life, has always been there. In fact, Aristotle said, interestingly, that it's not about being loved. It's about loving others that leads to fulfillment and happiness in life. And today we will be discussing this only, how helping others leads to self-discovery. Recent researchers have been giving out more and more evidences to show to us that being helpful, being kind to others makes us feel that our lives have some meaning. In other words, recent research have been pointing out that being altruistic or being little other-focused adds a little bit of meaning to our lives. And it's the same thing that Ryff also points out. Ryff is a scholar. She reviewed a lot of philosophers' work. And what she pointed out after reviewing their work is, most of these philosophers agree that being altruistic or being other-focused is a good route for having a meaningful life. That's Ryff for you. So what I'm trying to tell you here is, right from ancient times, right from Aristotle to recent researchers, everybody agrees on this fact that being helpful, being kind, yes, it does contribute to having a meaningful life. Let me go back to Mahatma Gandhi's quote. Mahatma Gandhi said, the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in service of others. What did he mean by this? So I can cull out two meanings, or I can derive two meanings. One, serving others adds meaning to your life. That's one. Second, the most important one is serving others. When you lose yourself in serving others, that's a process of self-discovery. That is, when you serve others, when you lead your life little other-focused way, you discover new things about yourself. When Mahatma Gandhi used the word service, what he meant by service was act of serving others, act of being kind, act of giving. Now, when you give, when I say give, it does not mean giving material things. What I mean by giving is giving your time, giving your presence. You know, at times, just being present for somebody else makes a huge difference. So when was the last time you actually were present for somebody else? That's the best service you can do. It's about paying attention. It's about listening. So serving others does not mean giving material things. It's about giving time. It's about being present when others needs you. It's about giving them attention. That's what Mahatma Gandhi meant by serving others. And when you start giving out your time and your attention, that's when you realize the act of service comes from something which is deep inside you. It is not about that material thing. It's about something that deep inside you that motivates you to be other focused. And the moment you start spending more time with others and when you start paying attention to others, that's when we realize it's not me alone in this world. There is us. That's when there's a gradual shift in attitude happens. The me gets diluted towards we. The moment I said we, my thoughts immediately ran back to this big music concert called We Are the World. The word is we. And the concert was held to help people in Africa who were famine victims. We. It's not me. It's we. This we orientation is something that Mahatma Gandhi considered as oneness. What Mahatma Gandhi later said is, when we serve humanity, that leads to the feeling of oneness. It's the same thing recently Government of India used in G20 summit. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. One world, one family, we. As we develop this we orientation, that's when we start looking at world and situations from a different perspective. We start looking for opportunities to serve. We start asking ourselves this question, what can I offer to this world? What can I do to make this world a better place? In fact, this attitude of what is in it for me gets diluted. In fact, you start shifting from being a consumer to a contributor. If you look at today's world, we just consume. We never think about contributing. The moment your perspective shifts to we start finding a way to contribute to the world. Let me take you back to the conversations I had with the volunteers of Robin Hood Army. When I was talking to some of these volunteers, what one of them said is, the day when I started spending time here, serving people, that's when I realized my empathetic self. He said, before that, I never realized that I had this feeling of compassion, empathy in me. So what I'm trying to tell you here is, unless you start contributing to others' life, you never realize your empathetic self. You never realize your compassionate self. So when you serve others, you start discovering that side of you which is empathetic, which is compassionate. And it's very important discovery to make. And in fact, when you start getting empathetic, you start understanding, not only understanding, you start appreciating others' struggle. You start getting sensitive to others' journeys in life. The biggest self-discovery that you make when you start serving others is you discover your self-confidence. That's time when you start serving others and you realize that when you can make change in others' life, you suddenly start realizing, oh, I can also change my own life. So serving others leads to that self-confidence. It builds a self-esteem. Where I can help others, I can also help myself. With every act of giving, you discover your empathetic self. You discover a little bit of self-esteem. But the biggest discovery you'll make with every act of giving is your selfless side. You know something, the moment you start serving others, the moment you start giving out to others, giving your time, giving your attention, giving your presence to others, what exactly is happening is you're placing others' needs much higher than your needs. And the moment you start focusing on others' needs, your selfless side starts to emerge. Your self-centeredness starts to dilute. And even, let me give an example. Even a small act, imagine you're going shopping somewhere. At that moment, you see a visually challenged person standing at the traffic intersection. You have to go somewhere, but still you take time out to help the visually challenged person cross the road. That small act of helping others required a little bit of selflessness. Had you been self-centered, you would have been more focused on shopping, not helping this visually challenged person. You would have just left it, oh, somebody else will take care. So the biggest discovery that happens when you start giving out things, when you start serving others is this. You discover a side that is called selfless side. Mahatma Gandhi said, the best way to find yourself, the key word is find, the best way to find yourself is lose yourself in service of others. So what Mahatma Gandhi was trying to tell you here is the best way to discover yourself is by serving others. Because when you serve others, the biggest discovery you make is, it's not me, it's we that matters. The next discovery you make is your empathetic side. Next you discover is your selfless side. And most importantly, you start practicing compassion towards your own self. And big thing, you start giving your time, you start giving your attention, you start making your presence felt in others' life. And the moment you start doing that, you find new meaning in your life. Verghese Kurien, in his autobiography, I Too Had a Dream, writes, working with Tribhuvan Das and Kaira's dairy farmers, I saw that when you work merely for your own profit, the pleasure is transitory. But if you work for others, there is a deep sense of fulfillment. Besides all this, let me quote some recent research. Recently, Professor Stephen Post wrote a very interestingly titled book, Why Good Things Happen to Good People. And in this book, he talks about how being other-focused helps us. Stephen Post explains, as Darwin noted, group selection played a strong role in human evolution. If something like helping benefits the group, it will be associated with pleasures and happiness. What Stephen Post was trying to tell us here is, by using Darwin, he's trying to tell us that evolution has programmed human beings to be more giving. Because giving or being helpful to others makes us feel good. But Stephen Post has one more argument also. What he's trying to tell us here is, by becoming other-focused, human beings dilute that self-centered behavior or self-focused behavior. And Stephen Post makes a wonderful connection, very interesting connection rather. The connection here is, if you look at today's world, we have these big issues of stress, anxiety. Now, all these stress, anxiety, depression-related disorders happen. Why? Because we become self-focused. So what Stephen Post is trying to tell us is, the best antidote to all the self-focused problems is to be other-focused. Now a problem. We've been talking about serving others, how good it is. But sometimes serving others can also have a negative effect. Serving others can also be a problematic. Now let me advise you here. If serving others or being kind to others overwhelms you, if it starts harming your daily routine, if it starts taking a toll on your mental health, then you better stop yourself. Serving others is good, but not at the cost of your health. Now that we have discussed the whole concept of how service contributes to self-discovery, let's understand how will you write an answer for this quote. And believe you me, answering quotation-based questions is a challenge. Now, when you're writing an answer for this quote, let's start with the introduction part. How will you introduce this? What strategy will you have to introduce this quote? What will you do? Now, remember the key word here in this quote is service. So, there are two ways to introduce this quotation. The first way to introduce your answer will be, use a quote to make a point. For example, you can use Tolstoy's quote. Tolstoy has very interesting observations on serving others. You can use Tolstoy's quote. Or you can explain the meaning of the word service. Or you can use a personality who symbolized this value of serving others, Swami Vivekananda. So there are three different ways to introduce this quote. Fine, you have a great introduction. Now you know how to introduce the answer. Let's come down to the body, the main part of the answer. This is where you have to explain the quote. And remember, the quote deals with journey of self-discovery. And this is where you have to explain how serving others helps you in finding yourself. And if you have listened to my lecture very carefully, you would have seen I spoke about how serving others helps you to find the we side of you, not the me, the we side of you. How it helps you to discover your self-esteem. How it helps you discover your empathetic self. You have to explain all this in the body part. And remember, your body should be of 100 to 110 words. And while explaining these three parts, you can also use examples. Examples from the lives of, say, Verghese Kurien. I gave you a quote of Verghese Kurien. You can even use examples of Swami Vivekananda. You can use examples of Abdul Kalam Sahib. You can use examples. You feel free to use examples. Now let's cover the last part of the answer, conclusion. And again, you can conclude if you have enough words left. Say if you have 20-25 words left, you can conclude by using a quote. Or you can conclude by summarizing the whole arguments that you have used in the body. Just summarize those points. And keep your conclusions always simple, because in exam you will not have time to frame a very powerful, impressive conclusion. Just keep it simple. In today's session, we discussed how serving others can lead to discovering our own self. How serving others adds meaning to our life. So in today's session, I covered two things. One, I elaborated on Mahatma Gandhi's quote. And two, I also gave you a structure of how to write an answer. And if you really want me to help you in writing answers, what you can do is you can frame an answer and share it with me on my email, or you can share it in the comments itself. I'll get back to you. So with this, we end today's session. Happy learning.